For those of you who do not know, we record these class sessions, and I'll show you where you can get access to the recorded session if you want. But anyway, let me introduce myself properly. My name is John Meredith. I am your instructor here for today's class session. And I've been with Sumo a little over 2.5 years. I started back in January of 2020. Have been training for a long time. Started as a Navy instructor once upon a time back in 1982. I've also worked as an IT manager, DBA programmer, network admin, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So hence all the gray hairs. So what you see behind me is my home office. So this is basically it. And otherwise, I want to welcome you to class. My only ask of you is that if you've got a question, please feel free to ask. The one thing I've learned from teaching for the number of years that I've been teaching is that if one student has a question, that generally gets your fellow classmates to think about, oh, that reminds me of a question that I had. And so before you know it, we've covered it in a real and interactive way. So I would encourage you to ask your questions, okay? Also, before I get started here, let me take a step back. We actually have on this call one of our curriculum developers, our instructional designers. And so I'm going to pick on the poor guy and ask Kevin to introduce himself.
Sure. I've been at Sumo just a little over a month, so I'm pretty new, but I am on the instructional design team. Previously, I worked in cybersecurity at Broadcom. I'm also an adjunct professor of computer science at Utah Valley University here in Utah. So I'm actually going to be teaching this course at the Illuminate conference in September. So I'm tapping in here just to get some of John's expertise and figuring out the right way to teach stuff.
All right. So anyway, I'm going to stop the streaming video here for a second. And so we can focus on the things we need to focus on. So objectives here, we're going to sit and talk about our observability solution. How many of you, let's say a show of hands here, how many of you have been playing with MicroStrategy for about 2 years? So let's just see how many of you are new to MicroStrategy or maybe not new to MicroStrategy. You've been playing for around 2 years. Okay, raise your hand. So click on the raised hand symbol. All right, which doesn't surprise me. A lot of you are new to MicroStrategy, which is great. Well, 2 years ago, we focused on mainly two things, logs and metrics. Okay, but we changed our approach and said, we've got to be more than logs and metrics. We need to really focus on two things: observability, being able to see across your environments, right, regardless of how complicated or uncomplicated they are. And then the other piece that we also focus on security. So now hopefully the messaging you're hearing and everything is all about observability and security. So this class logically makes a lot of sense with regards to observability. So we're going to talk about the various components of our observability solution. We'll talk about the 3 pillars of the observability solution. And this becomes a test question, so you might want to note this one down. Metrics, tracing, and logs, those are the 3 pillars. Then we'll talk about something called the root cause explorer and how you can use the root cause explorer to see what's going on. And being able to trace incidents and be able to troubleshoot an issue. So that's our game plan for this class. Now, specifically our agenda, we're going to talk about what is observability. We're going to look at a various set of tools. Remember, I'd mentioned that there are, the 3 pillars, again, metrics, tracing, and logs. Well, we're going to talk about when to use those different pillars and when to use the various tools. So we'll talk a little bit about metrics and root cause explorer. We'll go into our first hands-on labs and we'll identify an issue using the root cause explorer. Then we'll talk a bit about tracing and we'll go into the hands-on labs and talk about tracing using the Sumo Coffee application. And we'll talk about when logs are our best bet with observability and working with logs. So this is all about observability and how you can see things, okay? Okay, no sweat. Somebody just pointed out that they're going to be in and out because of meetings and stuff. That's fine, okay? So one other thing I forgot to point out, I'm going to go back to the previous slide if I can here. One more time, there we go, come on. Let's try this again. Go back a couple slides, there we go. All right, when we finish up this class, we're going to have 2 hours of lecture and lab. And then at the end of that, we're going to give you a chance to take a certification exam. Okay. So the certification exam is, scheduled to run 60 minutes. You've got it 60 minutes. It's a timed exam. It's all self-graded, and show you how to get there and all that fun stuff, and show you mechanically how to take the exam. But if you pass the exam, we're running a special today where you can get an Uber Eats voucher. So if you take the exam and you pass it, and if I've done my job right, we'll pass it. You can fill out this form, and I'll put this form in the chat box. Okay. I'll put this form in the chat box when we get to the exam. And so you can submit this form and we'll send you a $15 Uber Eats voucher. So something to consider there. All right. So what is observability? Okay, let's talk about it. In Sumo logic, right, we typically tend to think in terms of, we can look at logs from our operational intelligence to see how our systems are behaving, or we can focus on our security and see how folks are doing with regards to security here, and see what's happening there. We can look at various aspects of our business. So regardless whether you're in inventory, you want to see how your inventory is doing, or your accounting or whatever, you can see all those various aspects. At a very high level here, global intelligence, we can look at operational intelligence, security intelligence, and business intelligence across the globe at a very high level. So for example, if AWS guard duty makes us aware there's an attack going on in the world, we can see where that attack is and perhaps who might be affected. So as far as the Sumo Logic Continuous Intelligence Platform goes, and I'll show you that in a minute, you can obviously deal with your data. Your data could be from many various applications, could be running various microservices, could be on the cloud, could be on-prem. We really don't care. You could be using software as a service like Office 365 or Salesforce. And I remind you that Sumo Logic itself is a software as a service. You could be grabbing your data from mobile devices or third-party apps. We don't care where the data is. As long as we can ingest the data into Sumo Logic, we can see that data and see what's going on. So this data is coming from your logs and your metrics. So Sumo Logic is born in the cloud, raised in the cloud. We support multi-tenancy. We're run on AWS specifically, and we are scalable. So as you need more resources, we'll just scale it up for you automatically. If you don't need those resources, we'll scale it back. You'll find in our product, and we'll see this today in today's class, we've got a bunch of machine learning as well as a bunch of advanced analytic tools that you can use. And we also have a bunch of APIs, application programming interfaces. For those of you who teach computer science or are familiar with computer science, you know that APIs are the hooks that allow you from another application to call something and do something. So if in Sumo Logic or in some application you wanted to create a user account in Sumo Logic, or you wanted to run a report or run a query or something like that, you could very easily use our APIs for that. Now over here on the far right, where it says security and monitoring, this, as far as I'm concerned, the crown jewels of this slide, and the crown jewels of Sumo Logic. We have worked with great rigor to ensure that we are PCI compliant, CSA star compliant, SOC 2 compliant. We've received our FedRAMP moderate authorization. So these are the certifications that we currently hold, and we work with great rigor to maintain them. So you know that not only do we think we're really good, but outside agencies think we're really good too and have certified us in that regard. So, and then of course, I assume that you're all here in various roles here to use Sumo Logic to help you and help your companies out. So that's that. Now, again, back to what is observability, right? You have some application somewhere in your environment, or you have your environment or whatever. You want to be able to observe in that application of any failures, whether it's basic systemic operating system stuff or environment stuff, or it's the application itself or the microservices or whatever. You want to be able to notify an alert. Well, that to us is not just observability. That's just creating an alert. What we want to be able to do is we want to be able to understand the root cause. So we want to dig in here, looking at dashboards to see at a high level what's going on, or some sort of alert notification. But we want to go in through observability and through logging to see exactly what caused this root cause issue so that we can fix it resolve it, and then move on to the next issue. So as environments in today's world get bigger and more complex, and I think of cloud environments as a classic example of this, you might have cloud environments, AWS, Azure, Google Cloud Platform, across multiple regions, across different environments like your dev, your prod, your QA. You might have, a bunch of different microservices, a bunch of different, Kubernetes and various other systems to maintain them. And the point is that with our observability solution, you can see across this whole thing on a single pane of glass, a single pane of information. So you can see basically what's going on. And that will make it very easy for you to identify those problems, investigate those problems, and resolve those problems very quickly. So that to us is observability. As I said before, the 3 pillars of observability. Most people know that we've got a bunch of logs here, and logs typically tell us why things are what's going on. We also have metrics, which typically tell us what is going on. And then we also have tracing. So in our tracing, we can see transactions, and we can see at what point in time they're failing. So to us, these are our 3 pillars of observability. And as I said, you will see this in the form of a test question at least once while we're together. So tracing, metrics, and logs make up our 3 pillars. Okay. Now, what we all want, what your company wants, what my company wants, is we want the holy grail of customer experience. We want our customer experience to be wonderful. We want our customers very happy. We want them to think great thoughts and all that stuff. Well, in order to have a successful customer experience, it's based on 4 things. First, it's based on reliability. Is your environment up, stable, and answer and deal with my questions, my issues, things like that? It's got to be available 24/7, right? Most systems today have to be available 24/7. It's also got to have great performance. If the performance isn't so good, if it takes me a while, if I'm going to your web environment and it takes me a while to render and load that page, I'm going to go someplace else. It's that simple. And of course, it's got to be secure, right? Can't have any data leakage and data information and stuff like that. So here is some interesting statistics that you might find interesting with regards to this reliability and customer experience. 100 milliseconds of downtime reduces e-commerce sales by 1%. So again, reminds us how important availability is. Under performance, half a second of latency will drop your traffic by 20%. People will go someplace else. And then denial of service attacks are anticipated to double to 14.5 million by this year, at the end of this year. So as you can see here, understanding and like I said, trying to strive for that customer experience, I need to make sure all of these things are available. And that's where our observability solution comes in. Bear with me a second, folks. I just clicked on a link here that's kind of hidden, and it took me to the reference for this slide. So sorry about that. Now, again, some people, when they think of observability, they really think of monitoring. Gee, I want to create some alerts and be notified when there's a problem and things like that. Monitoring is a subset of observability as far as we're concerned. Observability means I want to see everything. I want to be able to see across my environments, and I want to understand why something is wrong. Monitoring is just going to tell you that you got a problem. I'm not going to tell you why it had a problem. So I want to focus on that. And this is probably one of my favorite slides in the whole deck, the iceberg slide. And the reason is, and again, I'm a retired Navy guy, so I can appreciate this. The little piece of iceberg that you see on top of the water line, the top of the water, doesn't give you any indication of how big the danger is below, right? And that's true for observability, right? What you see here is the ability to monitor and what's going on. And this typically represents about 20% of your data. It'll give you an idea of what's happening. Gee, I've got a problem, that sort of thing. Below that, there's an area here where we want to be able to diagnose. We want to be able to do improve our mean time to detection and resolve these things. It takes about another 30% of your data. And then ultimately, what we want to do is be able to troubleshoot this to resolve it, improve our mean time to repair, restore, whatever. And so that takes about 50% more data. So just what you see on top of here, gee, we've got a problem. that really doesn't give us a whole lot. That's, 2/5 or 2/10 of what we really need to get in order to understand that. And so our observability solution provides all three of these layers. So you can go from alert to resolution fairly quickly. Now, don't take my word for it. As we go through some of these exercises, you'll be able to see it yourself. So as we go through capabilities of observability solutions here, right, we start with monitoring, right? We have a bunch of monitors, alerting capabilities, dashboards, and monitors could come in two forms. I'm either looking at dashboards or I'm also getting alerts, but I basically can see some issues coming up. Then we want to be able to diagnose them. And you're going to find that we've got tools in here like the Entity Explorer, Trace Analytics, Metric Explorer, to be able to diagnose and to see what's happening. And then finally, we want to be able to troubleshoot these. And we can troubleshoot these by using tools like our Root Cause Explorer and searching our logs and looking at various behavioral insights. So these wind up being the capabilities of our observability solution that lets us deal with those three layers of that iceberg. Again, just a friendly reminder, in your environments are probably fairly complex, particularly if you're on the cloud, because you might have a whole environment here. This might be your dev environment, and then you're going to have multiple copies of it for prod and QA and all that stuff. In your data layer, you've got either relational databases or non-relational databases. In your container layer, you've got various microservices and various other things that are running. Some of those could be running through Java, Python, Go, whatever. And then you've got some sort of an API gateway layer or some sort of a layer that's going to connect to your presentation layer where your clients will then connect in. And your clients may come from mobile devices, they may come from desktops, they may come from browsers, they may come from a lot of different ways that they come in here. So understanding what's happening and being able to see where you have failures and where you have problems and where you're not serving your customers is obviously the key to success here. Okay. As far as understanding our observability solution here, as far as monitoring, diagnosing, and troubleshooting, again, just a quick little slide there. I'm going to skip past that. Here is another great test question and a series of test questions. By the way, I'm going to show you in a few minutes where you can get copies of our slides, because our tests are open book, open note, open slides, and yes, you can even ask me questions, okay? So here, when we're looking at the top of the iceberg, looking at monitoring things, here, in order to look at the monitoring, we're going to look at logs, we're going to look at metrics, we're going to look at traces, okay? And again, we may look at some sort of alert or dashboard or whatever. That's going to take us down here to where we're going to look at logs and traces to be able to diagnose our transactions, our various events, see those transactions, again, going through our various deployment to cluster to transaction levels and stuff like that. And then in order to be able to troubleshoot it, we're going to look at logs, specifically our patterns, our raw logs, and our context. I believe the test question here is for monitoring, it's logs, metrics, and traces. For diagnosing, it's logs and traces. For troubleshooting, it's just strictly logs. And so here we're looking at the logs of our various pods, various components, and understanding exactly where that all broke down and where the problem is. And as I said, we'll show you some examples of that as we go forward. Okay. Any questions so far? All right. Now, regardless of your role, if you're in DevOps or site reliability engineering, or if you're in software engineering, or if you're in DevSecOps, regardless of your role, I think you're going to find our observability solution, whether we talk about monitoring, diagnosing, or troubleshooting, has something here that can help you. And that's all this slide is really trying to tell you, is regardless of your role, you'll find that we can provide some good information here for you. Okay, pure and simple. All right, got a little poll activity here for you. A little question here to kind of lead us into our next topic. So poll activity. Which of the following observability tools make up the pillars for our observability solution? And I'll give you a hint, it's more than one answer here. So what are the pillars that make up our observability solution? Greg says logs, metrics, and tracing. Greg is absolutely correct. Okay, great. That's exactly right. Second poll, I'm sorry. sorry. So here again, we can see that our poll debrief to monitor, we use logs, metrics, and tracing. For diagnosing, logs and tracing, troubleshooting, logs, and we go there. Now, second question, and you may be surprised, we didn't talk about this. So this is something to get us to think here. While monitoring the requests per second in an HTTP service, you notice an abrupt spike in traffic, and you want to know what's happening in your system. Now, again, we're talking about requests per second of an HTTP system. We know our service, we notice there's an abrupt spike in traffic. Which of these observability techniques do you think is going to help us understand the cause of the spike? Okay. Karthik mentions logs, and it's funny because the way this question is worded, understanding the cause of the spike, logs would be the correct answer. So I wish they would we need to reword this question, because what we're really trying to get you here is we're going to start at investigating this. And what we know is we notice we've got an abrupt spike in traffic, and how we're going to see that is through metrics. So the correct answer, what we're looking for here is metrics. Karthik, I understand where you're coming from. You're not wrong. I get it. So here we're going to talk about using metrics and our root cause explorer. So we're going to start playing with this tool to see what's going on. All right. We're going to look and see what's going on here using metrics and root cause explorer, and understand when metrics can be our best solution. All right. So what we have here is a tool called the root cause explorer. In fact, let me be honest with you here. Let me just go ahead and log in here. I'm going to have you guys log in just a little bit, so just bear with me. Okay, just humor me. So here in my Sumo Logic environment, if I click on this new blue button, right? For those of you who've been with training with us before, you know that we teach you log search, and yesterday we taught you metrics, but all of these other buttons, this is where we teach those things. So here is where we're going to show you all of these other various buttons, not so much dashboard new, but all the other buttons here we're going to get into. And that's really the focus of this class. All right. Now, they want to talk about the root cause explorer. So I can click on new, and I can click on root cause, and it's going to load up my root cause explorer. Now, one thing I do want to do here real quick, assuming I can get this out of my way and move things around here just a little bit. I want to go to our documentation. So to get to our documentation, it's help.sumologic.com. That's the URL, help.sumologic.com. And the reason why I want to do that is I want to show you here in our environment, in our section here, bear with me a second. Tell you what, let's just do a search for it. Do a search for root cause explorer. And there's a reason why I'm doing this, by the way. Root cause explorer. Here we go. I think this is the one I want. So we find that the root cause explorer is under our observability solution. Actually, this isn't the one I want. Bear with me a second. Here we go, sorry. Under visualizations, under our visualizations alerts, under Explorer. Forgive me a second here. A little while since I've been here. They changed the pages on me. So I always find that kind of fun. Tell you what, let me go back. Go back. The reason I'm trying to show you the root cause explorer page, by the way, is because there's a bunch of test questions based on it. All right. So let me go in here back to the observability solution. Let me go to the root cause explorer here. Okay. And here we go. So here in the Root Cause Explorer, this provides you all kinds of information about the interface. And I'll walk you through the interface as well. But you'll find that it deals with 6 concepts, 6 of the golden signals that we use to use the Root Cause Explorer to troubleshoot. Again, that's another great test question, okay? So we talk about those various 6 conditions. We also talk about the root cause features. We talk about the various settings, impact, intensity, seasonality, stability, all of this wonderful stuff, the interface as far as using it, all that good stuff. There's a lot of questions that get answered by this page. That being said, I am going to copy this page. I am going to put it into the chat box to help you prepare for your exam. So you have that page. Now, back to my Root Cause Explorer here, if you don't mind. I'm going to go back to my slides real quick. Okay. The Root Cause Explorer lets us see across our environments and lets us see whether we're running on AWS or Azure or on the cloud or on-prem. We really don't care. But lets us see across things very, very easily. It lets us see things like throughput, errors, bottlenecks, latencies. And so we can see what's going on across our environment. And in a few minutes, you'll actually see, we'll actually go through an exercise here using the Root Cause Explorer. So up here, and actually, let me go back to the previous page. Actually, let me go back one more if I can. No, I guess not. Okay. This can collapse. These filters here can collapse by clicking on this little chevron. And if they are collapsed, of course, you don't see them. But these allow you to specify, in the case of AWS, your account ID, your region. So you can filter things. If you want to filter based on Kubernetes, by your cluster, by your namespace, things along those lines. Or if you want to focus on application services, again, you can put the switch over to the right like it's shown, and you can filter based on your specific applications or specific things. Additionally, you can also filter based on drift. Now, what's drift? Okay, well, let's take a look at what we're seeing here visually. Across my x-axis is my timeline. So I'm seeing time across here. Across my y-axis, I have something called drift. Drift is what percentage am I over or under or whatever from my norm. So the higher the drift, the higher off of norm I am. And if I want to, I can filter based on my drift percentage. I can bring it up a little higher, take it down a little lower, and filter within that. I can also look at my duration. Now, when I look at these circles or these ovals or whatever, obviously across the x-axis represents time. Across the y-axis represents drift. So I can filter based on drift. I can filter based on my duration. How long is this taking across my x-axis? Okay. I can also filter based on seasonality and based on stability. And I would encourage you to look those up in the documentation. Okay. Seasonality, stability. Okay. You might see a test question or two on that. And I can go through here and I can click and see on a specific issue what I'm seeing. Now, when I first open this up, I'm seeing all my errors, all my bottlenecks, all my latencies, all that sort of thing. But I can click and really focus on the areas that I want. Now, we've taken this kind of 3-dimensional diagram and kind of flattened it out to a 2-dimensional diagram. So I can see where I have overlaps across my various slices of time. So that's basically what the Root Cause Explorer is going to do, and it's going to help us see basically what's going on. So up there is where my filters and stuff are. Down here are my events of interest, throughput, error, bottleneck, latency, availability, load, and success. Down here, I can see across my x-axis my time, my y-axis my drift, and I can see how significant things are. And then, of course, I can see a 2-dimensional view of that. Over here to the right, I can see an overview of how many errors, bottlenecks, and things I have, so I can select those. And you'll find that we can use this area to the right to investigate further, to dig deeper, and all that fun stuff. So additionally, like I said, you can use the chevron to close this section up if you need to, minor stuff. You can delete these. Now, when you delete these, all it's doing is resetting the filters. You're not really deleting anything. You're just resetting the filters back to nothing. And again, using these switches, you can say, I want to filter on Kubernetes or I don't want to filter on Kubernetes. For example, here I want to filter on my AWS and host. Here, as shown, I don't want to filter on Kubernetes. And then, of course, I can specify some of these settings as well and see what happens. As far as my display, I can either see things as circles and ovals, or I can see things kind of as a Gantt chart. So it's just how you want to look at it. I can, if I want to, highlight an area and magnify it if I want to, focus on that area if I want to, and search. So all kinds of neat things that you can do. On these various pull down things, like I said, you can pull down and select specific namespaces or regions or whatever you want to basically see what's going on. Again, you can put your cursor over any of these circles, get a tooltip. That tooltip will tell you, what type this is. That's a bottleneck, which the color should tell you that anyway. The entity, which metric you're reading, the drift, the star at the end, all kinds of neat statistics. So you can see exactly what's happening. And as I said, in a few minutes, we're going to play with that. We're going to see this firsthand. So that brings us to our lab activity. Any questions so far? Any questions? All right. So let's do this. Actually, I'm going to skip the slide for just a second. What I want you to do is I want you to fire up Google Chrome or Firefox browsers, start them, launch them, whatever. And I'd like you to go to service.sumologic.com. Service.sumologic.com. Now, service.sumologic.com is our training environment. And here we're going to do all the exercises in our training environment. Why our training environment? Because I don't know what your company has for data, but I do know what our training environment has for data. So to run all these exercises and everything else, we've set up the environment so that you'll see this information. Now, when you go to service.sumologic.com, it's going to ask you for an email and it's going to ask you for a password. Next thing I'd like you to do is pick a 3-digit number, any 3-digit number that you would like. I'd like you to type it in the chat box just so we can make sure you don't have a lot of duplicates. So if you want to be 007, now's the time, right? Pick any 3-digit number that you want, and you're going to log in as training plus analyst with that 3-digit number at sumologic.com. Training plus analyst with that 3-digit number at sumologic.com. And the current password is fireworks with a capital F and an exclamation mark at the end of it. Now, this password changes every month. And if you want to know what the next password is, I don't know what it is yet, but when we change it, I will know. So if you need, if you're playing in our environment and you want to, we get into August, by the way, it changes on the first Monday of the month. And if you want to be able to log in, just send me an email and I will gladly let you know what that password is. But this is the current password. And so I want you to log in. So let me show you how this works. Let me stop my slides here for a second if I can. Let's get out of that. We'll go back a slide. So I'm in here right now. Let me go ahead and log out. Just bear with me a moment while I do that. So again, I went to service.sumologic.com. It took me here. It's asking me for an email. It's asking me for a password. Now, I'm going to log in. I'm going to take as my number here, 985. So I'm going to log in as training analyst, training plus analyst, 985. You may ask, why did I grab 985? 985 is the whole number to the USS Cushing. That was the last Navy ship I was on. So I'm going to type in training plus analyst 985 at sumologic.com. And then down here, I'm going to type in capital FIREWORKS exclamation mark fireworks. And I should be able to click sign in, and you should be able to click sign in. And we are in fact in. Okay. So again, if you would specify, let me know what number you want to take. Some of you have already done that in the chat box. Just I want to make sure we don't have a lot of duplicates. And I want to make sure you get logged in. So when you get logged in, I'd like you to raise your hand. In the participants area, there should be a place for you to raise your hand. Go ahead and do that. While you're doing that, while you're going through that, I am going to send you guys a document. I'm going to show you where I got this document. So you can get it if you can't download it from the chat box, but it's in the process of uploading. What I have here is we have a student guide. All of the labs that we're going to do in this class are in this student guide. So in the chat box, there should be a student guide that hopefully you can download. If you can't download it, it means that your company has restricted that you can't share documents in Zoom. Not a big deal. I'm going to show you another way to get there. So this is the lab guide that you and I are going to do in this class right here. Okay. All right. Now, again, I've got 6 hands that are up, means 6 of you have logged in. That's great out of 14. I don't expect 100% activity here. Now I've got 8 out of 14, pretty good. But I want to make sure any of you are having problems logging in. If there's issues, please let me know. Unmute your mic, ask, put something in chat. Let me know you're having a problem. Otherwise, I'm going to go ahead and assume everybody that wants to be in is in. And we're going to go, I want to show you a couple things before we get involved in this hands-on labs. Okay. So let me lower all the hands. Boom. And let me show you some things, first of all. Okay. So when I log in here, this is my navigation panel and it's open. If I want to close it, I can simply click on this left turn signal. If I want to open it, I click on anywhere up here where it's a Sumo logic and have the hamburger menu, right? Opens it right up. In here, I can see my library, which is a shared library that we can all have access to. I can see things in my personal folder. I can bookmark things as favorites. I can see things that are recently opened by me or things that were recently shared with me. Okay. And right now, there may or may not be a whole lot of things in that personal folder. Down here is our main menu. And in our main menu, that's where we have some of our security stuff like Cloud SIEM and Cloud SOAR and all that good stuff. By the way, if you're looking for training on Cloud SOAR, that will be available. The first classes will run during our Illuminate conference in September. We're building the training right now. So I would encourage you to check out our Illuminate conference. Our Illuminate conference, by the way, will be virtual and it will be free to access. Now, what I want to show you is I mentioned to you that we can show you where to get the slides, where you can get a recording of this class and all that fun stuff, where you can get that document that I just uploaded to the chat box. So if you click on this home tab and you click on certification and you click on get certified, this will take you to our learning management system. Now, currently, because I'm logged in as a training plus analyst, we've got some things that are disabled. So I only see 3 things out of 5. The 2 things I don't see are because we don't want to allow the training analyst or training admin to take a certification exam. Because when you take your certification exam, we want you to be logged in your environment with your name so that you get credit. We don't want training analyst 603 or 985 or whatever get credit for it. We want you to get credit for it with your name. Okay. So we've disabled that. Now, the point is that in here, there's a section called recorded live training. And if I click on recorded live training, here in my recorded live training, I can see all the classes that we offer. And here is the Observability Fundamentals Cert Champ. It's free. It says 120 minutes here. If I click on this, you get to register. And it takes only a second to register. You click on the button and boom, you're registered. Now, we're recording this from here. Here's the recording of our class. And you can listen to that recording. You can also download the student lab guide from here. You can also download the slides from here. Again, some of the test questions are going to be based on the slides. So I would encourage you to have access to this. Just to make things a little easier, I will take this link and I will copy it and paste it in the chat box. Okay. So that's how you can get slides, recordings, and any of our courses. In fact, if I go back here, I can take any class, any instructor-led class that we offer, and I can get a hold of that information. the recording, the slides, the lab guide, et cetera, et cetera. Now, when I go back here, the other thing that we don't give you access to is our self-paced training. So we also have some self-paced training, which we want you to take logged in as yourself so you get credit for it. But you'll find that our instructional developers, when they devise a class, whether it's instructional, whether it's instructor-led or it's self-paced, they provide a self-paced course here that you and I can go through. So later on, when we get to the certification exams, I'll show you that or remind you of that, okay? Additionally, over here where it says access to course catalog and certification exams, again, this has a little bit of information here about our training environment, nothing really exciting. But you'll find there's another link here that we normally have where you can see our micro lessons. It's another thing our instructional developers work very hard on. We create little 5 to 10 minute videos that teach you how to set up a collector or how to use the root cause explorer or a whole bunch of other things. There's probably close to 100, if not more than 100 micro lessons out there that you and I can listen to and learn and take some quick knowledge here from. So just wanted to mention all that to you. Any questions about that? All right, let's get back to the exercise here. And I skipped a slide. Now I'm going to come back to it. So ladies and gentlemen, I want to congratulate you all. You've been hired by the Travel Logic Corporation. For those of you not familiar with Travel Logic, it's a website where you can book hotel and airfare and cars and all that good stuff. And as the new DevOps specialist for Travel Logic, you've been assigned the responsibility to the following things. You're a DevOps specialist supporting that Travel Logic application, which runs on AWS and uses the following AWS services. ELB, or Application Load Balancer. You're responsible for a host in EC2, and you're responsible for DynamoDB. Say that fast 3 times. So it says the end users experience an outage in the application and they're getting a 5xx error, 501, 502, 503. We don't care, it's a 500 error in the US East 1 area over the last 24 hours. So being the DevOps specialist, your challenge is to troubleshoot and rapidly isolate this root cause. So that's what we are going to do, okay? And rather than doing this by the slides, if you don't mind, I'm going to go out here to the lab guide and we're going to go through here and lab 1, and we're going to go out here and see what's going on, okay? So again, in lab 1 of the lab guide, it tells us what we're going to be doing, tells us our role, tells us our scenario, all of that good stuff. Now, we could start off in our Explorer. So here in Sumo Logic, let me close this navigation panel up. I could click on New. I could click on Explore. Now, the reason we can click on Explore here under Explore, you'll see that I can see all stuff of my Kubernetes environment. I can see my AWS environment, host and processes stuff, all kinds of different things. So I could go into my AWS observability here. I could find my Travel Logic environment here. I could click on US East 1, and I can start seeing some dashboards over here. Let me move this over here to the left, kind of squish it up. And over here, you'll see that when I look in my Explore, I've got a whole bunch of dashboards here that I can look at. So I could start here if I wanted to and look at things. Or I could also go into New and click on Root Cause and just bring up my Root Cause Explorer. Now my Root Cause Explorer here is going back 3 hours. It's loading up real quick. Just bear with us a second. And I can see as my Root Cause Explorer starts to paint up here, issues, problems, and all that good stuff. So we talked about this Root Cause Explorer, and as I said, if I click on the chevron, I can open this up and I can filter based on things that I want. I can see the relationship of different things. And this is really cool because now I can see Here's an application load balancer error, which was preceded by an EC2 instance bottleneck, which was preceded by a DynamoDB bottleneck. Who would have thought these three things are related? But if I look at my timeline, they are in fact related. This one happened first, this one happened second, this one happened third, okay? And so I can see the relationship of various things, all right? So per our lab one guide here, they say we can go into the Explorer and we can see it that way, which is true. Then if I turn the page, we can also, actually, I'll tell you what, we'll do it that way. We'll go into the Explorer and we'll do it that way. So let me go back to my Explorer tab. So here under my prod US East 1, again, I can see where my people are logging in from. Move this over here to the left. I can see my AWS resources here as far as my create, delete, update type stuff on my DynamoDB EC2. I can see my load balancer, and look, what do you know? I've got an error there. Looks like a high amount of errors there, something to deal with. I can see my ELB load errors. I can see all kinds of cool stuff. But what I really want to do is I really want to select a different dashboard. So here in my directions, it wants me to go in the dashboard, grab the AWS regions of interest, and they want me to open up the events of interest dashboard. So I want to grab the AWS region events of interest. And lo and behold, this looks just like my root cause explorer. It's really not. It's a dashboard made up like my root cause explorer. But here I'm focusing on prod. I'm focusing on US East. And so here I can see that I've got an application load balancer. Well, application load balancer. And again, the metric is HTTP code ELB 5XX. Okay. So that indicates that I've got a problem, and that's my area of responsibility. It's your area of responsibility. Immediately preceding that, I had an EC2 instance bottleneck. EC2 is also our area of responsibility. Before that, I had a DynamoDB issue, a read throttle event. Read, look at the metric there. It says read throttle event some. And so I've got some sort of a read throttle event. Somewhere here before this, I had some sort of other Lambda error, get billing information. I had another get billing information. And I go over here and there's my application load balancer again. Here's my EC2 instance. Here's my DynamoDB. So this right here, like I said, is a dashboard of my root cause explorer. You can call it root cause explorer light if you want to think of it that way. But basically, it's showing us what's going on. Now, let's take this and let's explore this a little bit, okay? So what I want to do here is I want to, you'll notice there's three vertical dots here in my dashboard. There's three vertical dots right here. You want the lower one because here you can open this up in my root cause explorer. So when I click on that and I open up in my root cause explorer, you'll notice that it's going to filter for my prod account. It's going to filter for that specific region. And as soon as it gets done here running for the last 24 hours, it will now show me those filtered events. Remember when we looked at root cause explorer by itself, it showed a whole bunch of things. Well, now this is only showing me my prod environment and my US East 1. So here again, I see the pattern. My error right there, which is caused by my little latency right there, my bottleneck, which is then caused by my DynamoDB issue. Now, you notice that when I click on these, I start seeing some information over here. So here, what I'm looking at is my HTTP 5XX codes. And what I'm looking at here are three different time frames. So this is my current, and I see a spike. I also have previous day and 5 days ago. That's what these metrics and stuff are here. And those didn't show any errors, any problems. So all of a sudden today I have a problem, okay? Additionally, I can see information about this, where it's coming from. I could click on entities and I can link to other things. I can see various simple little charts here of what's happening. Again, this was predicated by this. Excuse me. This was predicated by this, which was predicated by this. So what I want to do here is I want to click on the DynamoDB error. In fact, I want to focus on just these three things. So I could, since I'm in the root cause explorer, drag a box around these things, and it will then filter and show me only those three things. So again, I can click here, click there. Now, again, the first event that set us off was this DynamoDB table. And the metric was read throttle events. Now, I don't know how many of you are DBAs, but if somebody adjusts my read throttle events, and a DBA can do that, that could start creating some latency because I'm not able to read fast enough. I'm not able to write fast enough. My performance is off, okay? So when somebody tunes a database, the database may need to be retuned, or they may have mistuned it or whatever. Again, when I look at these three metrics, these three charts here, today, this is my current spike, my previous day, and 7 days ago is what I'm seeing here, okay? So obviously I've got a spike here. And again, I can click on entity, and here I can then investigate this even further. So let me get back to my documentation here a little bit. So we went into open this thing up in the root cause explorer, which we did. We then drew a box around this and magnified this, which we did. We are now looking at these three things, specifically our DynamoDB issue. And so what I can do is, it says here, I can click open in the entity section, the entity dashboard. So here under my entities, open in entity dashboard. Now this is going to take us back to our Explorer. And here in our Explorer, it's showing us our metrics around our DynamoDB. And I see here that I've got some errors here, but these two are behaving fine as far as read capacity. Also, additionally, I've got a couple of other DynamoDBs that I can deal with. So let me take a quick look and gander at these four. Again, this one's off. This one's a little bit farther off. And again, these are all in the green, okay? So the point is that you can figure out which one of these tables is causing you issues. And we can also go down here, look at our read capacity, our write capacity, our read throttle events, write throttle events, see basically what's going on here, which is what they're trying to show us to do here. In fact, they want us to change this to the AWS DynamoDB events. So let's change this to the AWS DynamoDB events. And so this is a different dashboard that provides me different information. So here I can see where my users are coming in from, how many errors I have. I can see whether we're trying to describe table or update table, who my users are. I can see my top errors, and I can see all of my various table events. Okay. Now, again, we are making the assumption that somebody's messed with my read throttle events, and that's what's causing our issue. So what I want to know is who changed that, who updated my table. So if I go down here, and as I said, I can see my my errors and all that fun stuff. I'm going to look here at top errors, open and search. So let me go back up here to top errors, open and search, open and log search. This is going to take me to my logs, where I can see the log messages that make this up. And again, because this is the first time this particular user is logged in, it's trying to give me help, which is kind of annoying, okay? So it says requested resource not found, describe table, and I can sit there and see, who this user was and all of that good stuff. Okay. Now, to tell you the truth, I want to go to a different query. Okay. So bear with me a second, guys. Let me go back here to this Explore tab. I want to go down here to all my table events. And here in my table events, here's where I want to open this up in my log search. So when I open this up in my log search, again, I can see that I've had messages with regards to describe table, update time to live by my various users. So it looks like somebody made a change, Davin made a change, and then Ankit made a change. And so what I can do if I want to is go to my messages. And if you'll just bear with me a second while I scroll down, under my event name, if I click on that, you'll see there's my two choices: update time to live and describe table. Typically, if somebody changes something with the table, they're modifying update time to live, or they're updating something with the table. They're not doing something to describe the table. So what I want to do is I want to filter this query and only see stuff where it says update time to live. And if I do that, you'll now notice it adds this to my query, and therefore it's only going to filter and show me events where I have update time to live. And then if I scroll through here, I can see who the user was that made that change, and I can see what change that they've made. And so here we're able then to talk to Davin and say, Davin, why did you make the change? It's now creating a delay for us. We're having issues. Can we change it back? No problem, Greg. Thanks. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is lab number 1. Okay. And that's basically what we're doing here, as we're seeing all that. Okay, seeing who caused it. So we went from a high-level dashboard, root cause explorer, and through our various explorers down into the logs that show us where things are. And this is on an AWS environment, whether we're on prod or dev or QA or whatever, with a bunch of different micro services running. So it's very easy to see, go from your big picture into the specific data points and identify what the root cause is. Any questions about this? Any questions at all? Well, let's continue on to lab 2, and then after lab 2, we'll take a break. So in lab 2, we want to talk about tracing, and we want to talk about a different application. We want to talk about Sumo Coffee. Now, Sumo Coffee is like Starbucks, except it's not copyrighted. Okay, let me be fair here. So let me jump ahead and talk about tracing. As I said, it's a quick little overview, and then we'll get into the lab, and then we'll take a break. So tracing, we're going to focus on the tracing part of Sumo logic, right? Metrics only look for known failures, right? Logs typically tell us what's going on. Traces is going to basically tell us how transactions are performing. And we'll be able to see delays, we'll be able to see breakdowns, we'll be able to see all kinds of stuff with regards to tracing. So tracing makes troubleshooting easier with regards to transactional data. Okay. Again, if you think about a user request, whether they're logging in, they're doing something, they're logging out or whatever, that may, if you're on a cloud type environment, may go through this environment to that application to this, system to that, to the, they have individual paths and individual possible paths they can go through. And sometimes as they're going through things hang up or get hooked up or whatever. And so it's very important to understand where the user is in this process to see exactly where things are starting to break down. So we're going to use transactional tracing to see where failures happen. We're also going to use it to see where we have performance issues. Now you can use transactional tracing across your application, You can also use it, across various things, but typically we use it across the application. Other parts of our observability solution can be used for the platform technology, the infrastructure, the app components, but tracing typically works at the application. Okay. Karthik asked an excellent question. Thank you very much. Karthik asked, is there a separate session on how to set up these dashboards for AWS Kubernetes components not in this fundamental session? You are absolutely correct, Karthik, there is. What you want is the observability administration class. That's where we show you how to set up tracing, how to set up the Kubernetes environments and all that, set up tracing for Kubernetes and all of that fun stuff. So yes, Karthik, that's where we do that. This is just showing you how we consume it. That shows you how we set it up. So yes, Karthik, I appreciate you asking. I hope that answers your question. Okay. So when is tracing a good option? Well, tracing is a good option when you have transactions. The best way to think of tracing is think of a package that you're expecting to get, right? You can go to FedEx, UPS, Postal Service, whatever, and you can see where that package is along the way. You can see when it got there and when it moved and so forth and so on. So you can get an idea of all the transactions that happen. You may have employees that you're interviewing for a position. You can see the transaction of, gee, I got the resumes, I've screened the resumes, I've passed them on to the hiring manager picks the top whatever candidates. We start the interview process, and we can see all the transactions that occur in this process. If you're in manufacturing, again, you can see the transaction of your manufacturing process. A user goes through the login process, goes through a place order process, all that stuff goes to this. Well, if you think about Sumo Logic Coffee or a Starbucks type place where you can buy a fresh cup of coffee, there's obviously transactions that can occur, right? Now, the reason we chose Sumo Logic Coffee instead of Starbucks is Starbucks is copyrighted. We can't use Starbucks, but we can use Sumo Logic Coffee. So it's a great, you can get a great cup of coffee. And of course, there are thousands of locations around the world. And if you think about it, right, when people want to place their order, a customer places their order, either verbally to a human being or perhaps through a kiosk or through some sort of touch screen. The order then posts to the barista. The barista then initiates and fires up the coffee machine. The coffee machine grinds, checks the bean levels, and if it has enough, it grinds the beans. It checks the water levels, and if it has enough water, it dispenses the water. And it does whatever we have to do to make the coffee ready for the customer. Then the customer pays for the order. If the credit card is approved, customer picks up their order and off to the races we go. And each of these steps represents a microservice in our transaction system. Okay. Now, one little thing I would say, and if you've been to a Starbucks or a Sumo Coffee, you know that a lot of times they ask you to pay up front, because if the card is denied or whatever and you can't pay, why am I going through all of this exercise? Why am I wasting beans and wasting water? So you'll find that there's a little improvement here that you can make to this order. Now, here we have Abel. Abel's a coffee lover, right? Who loves Sumo Logic Coffee, and he accesses it through the touch screen computer and all that good stuff. Well, what we want to do is, as far as the barista is doing, there's basically two major actions here. There's the machine service, where we're going to grind the beans, dispense the water and all that stuff. There's also the payment service, which is going to process the payment and say, yes, you're approved, or no, you're denied. So we want to sit there and see that. So what this tracing is going to allow us to do is, when Abel orders his coffee and the barista posts it, not only are we going to see that they've delivered the coffee, but we'll be able to see all the transactions along the way. So the client orders the coffee, barista receives the order, how long of a delay was that? Barista pairs the coffee, customer receives the coffee. And so what we have is we have something called spans and traces, okay? Now the trace is the entire act, right? A client places the order, the client receives the order. That is all having the same trace ID. Another client would have a different trace ID. But again, as it goes through all the processes, grinding the beans, dispensing the water, all those things, it would have the same trace ID. But each one of those elements that is done, those microservices, are a different span ID. And so in Sumo Logic, you and I can see the trace ID and the span ID. And where this starts with service maps. So let me stop my slides there. Let me go back here. Talk about lab 2 in my PDF document, page 15, 16 here. Again, it gives us a narrative of what we're going to do. And we're going to start with a service map. So I'm going to go back here to Sumo Logic. I'm going to go up here to new, and I'm going to find the option that says service map. Now here in service map, and again, the because I'm a new user, it's trying to give me help in this, which quite frankly, I really don't want. So any transactional data we have coming in here is showing me information about that transactional data. Here is the Sumo Logic coffee stuff, okay? Here's some other transactions and stuff that we created as part of our admin class. And then here's a payment system related to something else. So what I can do is I can go up here and I can filter this. I only want to see the coffee bar app stuff. And so now that will filter my coffee bar app to make it easy for me. And what you'll notice, of course, when you're looking at here is you'll see that I've got different size circles. The size of circles is based on the request per seconds. You'll see that in the form of a test question. You'll also notice that some of the circles are in red. Red means an abnormal condition occurred. Again, a great test question. So here I can see that on my front end, I have some overriding issues. Here's my coffee bar itself, going to the coffee machine, which then goes to the machine service, which then talks about grinding the beans and or also dispensing the water, okay? Also, if I'm going out to the cloud, so for example, here I'm going out to the cloud for some other system, I see it as a cloud icon. And that's when I'm trying to process the transactions, okay? So what I can do, or what you can do from here, is per the directions, we can focus on a particular node of this, and we can go into the traces of that node. So I'm going to take the coffee service here. I'm going to click on the coffee service. And when I click on the coffee service, again, it shows me some nice informational stuff here, the latency, the request per seconds, all that stuff. But what I want to do is it says you can open this up in, and I can open this up and go to the logs, I can go to the traces, I can go to the spans, I can go to whatever the heck I want. And in our case, what we want to do is we want to go to our traces. So I'm going to say open in, I'm going to click on traces. This is now going to show me, and this being very helpful, shows me my specific application that I want. And I'm looking only at the service of the coffee service here. And so what I can see is the various steps and microservices and how long they took here. I can sort if I want to here by duration. So I can look for long durations, right? Where things took a long time. I can also, if I want to, search for the number of spans, or my personal favorite, I want to search where I've got a fair number of errors. So let me sort by number of errors, and it sorts it in descending order. So I've got 13 errors here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and click on this first trace. So these are all different traces. These are all different customers, whatever. I'm going to click on that trace. It now opens it up in my trace view. So in my trace view, you'll notice I've got different colors. The different colors represent each different microservice that I have. So overall, for my transactions, 61% were spent at my coffee bar front end. My check suite functions in my application took 27%. And this right here took 6%, which is my execute stuff on my machine service. Additionally, you'll see I've got some red lines over some of these bars. These red lines indicate where I have an error. Now, there's a switch up here that I could throw that says error spans only. And if I do that, it kind of highlights the ones with the red lines in it and ghosts out the ones that don't have a red line. Now, here's what you want to remember for the test. If you have no errors in your transaction, in your trace, you will not see this switch. So if you don't see this error spans only switch, it's because there are no errors here. Ours obviously does have errors. Now, what I have here is my order. Below that is my client posting the order. Below that is, another part of the subpart of the error order and stuff like that. What I want to do to troubleshoot this is I want to start looking here at my low parts, my lowest things with a red underline, okay? And I'm going to go ahead and click on this one right here. And when I click on this one, the lowest part, it says, here's my machine service, right? HTTP post. I got a 502. And what I can do is I can open up either the span ID or the trace ID. Remember, the trace is the entire transaction. The span is this specific instance, this specific little activity. So I want to open the logs with the span ID, So now it's going to go ahead and run a query here to show me the results of my span ID. Bear with me a second. There are no results there. Let me go back here a minute. Let me go back up one. Sorry about that, folks. And do this again. All right. There we go. All right. So what I have here in my logs is I have the latest message first and then the previous message and so forth and so on. So the oldest message said, hey, I got new order, right? Wants a cappuccino. And so the next message says, oh, sorry, I don't have any grains. I can't dispense this order. So here I can see what caused that error. I'm out of grains. Somebody's got to fix that, right? We've got to, put more grains in there so we can grind it up. So the point is that you and I can go into the service map. We can see that we've got issues and errors. We can very quickly get to the logs to see what those issues and errors are to troubleshoot and say, maybe we want to create a bigger hopper for the grains, or we want to contain a bigger water reservoir, or things like that. So here you can see, take this from this information all the way down to what caused the problem. And that's what we're doing here in lab number 2. Any questions? You don't have to raise your hand, Karthik. Just go ahead and ask your question. And again, you should be able to ask your question. Oh, I see. Hold on a second, Karthik. There you go. Mic's enabled. Apologize for that. Just go ahead and ask your question if you want, or type it in the chat box, whichever you want.
Yeah, if you go to one of the trace window.
I'm sorry, go to the trace window. Yeah.
Yeah, go to the trace window. You see, if you hover over the coffee bar front end or UI lambda check suites function.
Yep.
So it says spans 2. What does that mean, spans 2? Like it has a.
Okay. It means there were 2 spans down here. These 2, this one and this one.
Okay.
Okay. Just so you know what this function is when you order something through the kiosk, is a function that checks your order. Checks your order and makes sure we have it available. That's what this is doing.
Okay. And even the front end has 2 spans, like the one under below them. Okay.
Yep.
So the trace ID, trace ID and the span ID, can you explain the difference again?
Sure. The trace ID is the entire transaction. So,
okay.
So I want to see the entire transaction from the time the person ordered to the time they got served, or if there's a failure or whatever. Span ID is the specific action within that tran ID. Did they get their coffee? Did they pay their bill? Did they, that specific element. And from here, by the way, from these various things, in fact, let's just go down to here for a second. I can actually open up the logs to see the information about that transaction, to see if there's any information in those logs. Now, we didn't set up tracing in those in the suite function, so that's why we're not seeing any logs there. But that's basically how it works.
So we send the trace ID from the front end to the back end. So as part of instrumentation, is it like as an application?
Actually, it generates that stuff automatically. Yes.
Okay, if you use the libraries, that's what you're saying. Okay.
I'm sorry.
If you use the libraries, Sumo logic libraries, is that what? Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, we're good. Good. Any other questions, ladies and gentlemen? Thank you for the questions, Karthik. All right. I told you we would take a break after lab 2, so let's do that. I'm going to open up a new tab here. I'm going to set up a 5-minute timer. If you all would be back when this timer gets down to 0, I would appreciate it. I'll see you back in about 4 minutes and 53 seconds. Have a good break. Hey folks, it's John. Hopefully you guys had a chance to get a break, get yourself something cold to drink or hot to drink or whatever you needed to do. So when I last left off here, you notice I've got a bunch of tabs open here. And for those of you who've been with class with us before, you know, you can very easily close those tabs, close all those tabs. Of course, you can close them all one at a time, which is not the most efficient thing in the world. But if you click on the three vertical dots on any of these tabs, you'll see you have an option to close all tabs. And so I can very quickly clean that up and make it easy for me to have kind of a clean space to work. All right. So we last left off, we talked about root cause explorer, we talked about traces. Now what we want to do is we want to talk a little bit about how log can help us understand what's going on. So if you'll bear with me here just a second, I'm skipping a bunch of slides here just to save some time. Okay. And so what we want to do really here is focus on logs. In fact, let's just go to this poll activity here. And it says, as it's loading, there we go. With the help of metrics, we get an indicator that something is wrong with an application. We now want to figure out why it happened with more details. Which tool would you use? So where would I go, right? To now that I've got my metrics and I know we've got a problem, where do I understand why something got broken down? Where would I go? Put it in the chat box or whatever you want. Are we back? back from break. There we go. Okay, good. All right, Karthik is back. He's at tracing. Actually, Karthik, what I'm looking for here, unfortunately, is logs. Because while we talked about tracing, we talked about metrics, now we want to focus on logs. So, okay. So we want to talk about observability with logs.
I mean, like from metrics, we go to tracing, right? And then from tracing, we go to the actual logs. Is that the
typically that's true, but we went through tracing. We went through spans. So now we went from metrics to tracing, and now we're trying to get the log. So yeah, I agree. I understand what you're saying about as far as the flow of things, and I appreciate that feedback. But obviously right now what I want to talk about is logs, because logs tell us ultimately where things have broken down. In fact, when I was in tracing and doing the span stuff, I ultimately went to logs, right? When I was doing the root cause explorer and I did the root cause explorer and I did the metrics and stuff from there, from the metrics, I went into the root cause explorer and I went into ultimately logs to find out what happened. So logs is typically where our last stop is, and it tells us where things have happened. Now, when our logs are best bet with regards to observability, right? So we're going to go through a scenario here where we're going to talk about we can get alerted on an incident, right? We have an issue and we can then troubleshoot that issue. So what happens is our users are experiencing an outage in our coffee app in US East 1 for the last 24 hours. And you can set up your alerts such that you can send them, bear with me a moment, to things like Slack or Teams. So we can get an alert here that tells us that we've got an issue with regards to our coffee prep time or whatever. And so we can go into this particular alert. Now, when you and I create alerts, we can put all this content into the payload of that alert and send it to Slack or Teams. And you and I can click on this alert, although it's going to want me to authenticate in. Hang on a second. It's taking me, in my case, to this demo environment. So it's something you don't have access to. And I can then see that alert. Now, I don't know if you're familiar with our alerts, but recently we've enhanced them and added to them and done all kinds of cool things. So here in my alert, right, here's my alert ID, how long that alert has been active for, and all that fun stuff. I can see what my alert is, latency time. I can see the associated log messages with that alert. I can see various context of my alert here as far as what is happening down below here. And I can also see new issues or missing issues or changed issues. as far as my log information. Additionally, I can see any related alerts related to this issue. So high CPU was detected, Kubernetes node detected, so forth and so on. I can also see the monitor history as far as when this alert fired off. And most importantly, I can also click on this playbook link up here, and I can then go into a playbook to see what's happening. So this playbook, if I click on this link, it takes me to this particular playbook where I can then start to investigate and start seeing what's going on with regards to this spike that I'm getting. Now, this spike shows me something called real user monitoring. So what is real user monitoring? Real user monitoring allows us to see when you have an application that uses a browser. It lets you see the performance that the browser is seeing. So you can set up real user monitoring by adding a couple little script tags into your web pages. And we can then see how long it's taking for pages to render, to load, to do all kinds of things. And therefore you can see what your user's performance is from their browsers. And you can see it by browser, you can see it by operating system, you can see it by, region, by, all kinds of different things. But here I am seeing that I have an issue. And I can click on this, and like before, I get this little side panel. This side panel proceeds to show me the summary information here. And then I can also click on entities. And if I need to, I can open this up in something else. I can open it up in my log search, my entity dashboard, all kinds of fun stuff. Now, let me go back and actually do the exercise that's listed here. So I just kind of went on a rant with something else, with some environment that quite frankly, you don't have access to. And I don't want to do that to you. So let me close this stuff up. Let me switch back over to the training environment. But I wanted you to see how we can go from alert that comes to us from email or Teams or Slack or Jira tickets or whatever, and we can then go into and troubleshoot that. So here, remember I'd mentioned earlier on that we're focused on US East 1, right? We're a site reliability engineer, and we want to look at the last 24 hours. We got an issue that there's a Lambda alert. So where would I start? Well, I could start with my Explorer. So I can go up here in New, Explore. And again, we're in Prod, we're in US East 1, and we want to find Lambda. So I'm going to click on Lambda. So here in this dashboard, as it starts to render, I can see my various AWS services using Lambda, my top users using Lambda, where my users are logging in from. I can see my performance as far as invocations, duration, errors, throttling, all kinds of good stuff. Additionally, down here, I can also see my top functions by duration, my top functions by memory use. I can see where I'm having successes or failures, and I can see my top error messages, okay? In fact, one of the things I notice when I'm looking down here at my successes and failures, that I've got nothing but failures from this get billing information. I have no successes. Here I'm seeing some successes, I'm seeing some failures. Successes or failures. So what I really want to do is I want to focus on this get billing information, failure, right? Get nothing but failures. The way I can do that in this dashboard is I go back up to the top, and here under function name, I can click on that, and I can filter and start typing. If I start typing in get, it should give me the function name of get billing information. And so when I select that, that's going to refresh the various panels here. So now I'm only seeing data from this get billing information. And I notice I'm getting 718 errors from my get billing information here. Now, this is all great. All of these panels are based off of queries. So what I want to do is go into this particular panel here. Actually, hold on a second. Let me make sure I get it right. It's been a little while since I've done this. Most frequent, okay. Okay, down here, my most frequent function operator, okay? So down here, I see, here's my function of get billing information, and I see the functions that are using that, okay? So from here, this is where I want to go into my log search. The reason being is I want to focus on a specific event name. You know, again, whether you invoke the function or you list the functions, those are just a consumer using things, okay? Updating the function configuration, that's making some change into my performance and table and stuff like that. So I want to be able to focus on that one. So I'm going to open this up in my log search. And here in my log search, it's going to run my queries and get me my information back. And I can see my raw messages. So this is my overlying query. And what I want to do is I want to filter this for this particular function configuration. So that's called event name. So I'm going to go back to my messages. In my field browser down here, I'm going to find the event name. I'm going to click on it. And again, what I want is this update function configuration. So I'm going to click on it. And you'll notice it adds this line to my query. And so now I'm filtering it, only see the messages from that particular event name. And so here, what I'm seeing is my user Mark Smith is having an issue with this get billing information. And so Mark Smith is the one who made the change here. And so again, I can find out from Mark what he did, what he changed, and so I can get things fixed. To tell you the truth, to be a little bit more obvious, you'll notice that all of these errors, if I go back up here, are because my database authentication error, invalid credentials. Well, what I'm trying to figure out is who updated those. So it was Mark Smith. So if I see who updated my function configuration, or Mark Smith, now I know who changed the credentials. I can ask Mark why, you know, so forth and so on, and or have them fix it so we pass those right credentials through. And that's a good example of using logs to be able to see what's going on. And that's what we're basically doing in lab 3. Okay. Now in lab 4 says there's other things we can use with logs. And if you've had our search mastery class, we talk about some of these other things. The log reduce operator, the log compare operator, and so forth and so on. So let me give you a good example here of what's happening. I'm going to change gears for just a second. I'm going to create a new log query. And in my log query, I am going to look at my, hang on a second. My snort logs. Now, snort is an application that you basically have that tells you if somebody's trying to access things in a malicious or bad way. By the way, let me go back here to 60 minutes instead of the last 15 minutes. And you'll see that in my snort logs, I have over 6,000 errors, 6,000 log messages, I should say, over the last 60 minutes. I don't really want to go through each and every one of these. And the good news is with Sumo, you don't have to. So I can click log reduce. And what it's going to do is it's going to look at the pattern of those log messages. And it's going to show me, it's going to group the ones together. So I can really see what I need to focus on here. So one of the functions we want to talk about here is log reduce. Log reduce is, like I said, going to do a pattern match. It's going to combine my messages together. So out of my 6,230 messages over my last 60 minutes, 3,179 are this message. Bug port, config.conf file access. Okay. Well, when I look at this particular message and I look into this config.conf issue was related to an update we did. So that went in and that update modified that conf config.file. And so that's what happened. It really isn't a known threat. So what I could do is I can say I can demote it and make its relevance score 0 if I want to. Additionally, in here, if I want to, I can edit this. I can just see these 3,000 messages. If I want to, all kinds of nifty things here that I can do. Now, again, this kind of helps me prioritize what I need to focus on. But I also maybe want to compare it with other timeframes. So I could go here to log compare, and I could click on this, and I could pick 24 hours, 7 days, or I also could click custom so you can see. So I can pick what I want to do here. Now, what this is going to do, if I take these default settings, it's going to take my snort logs. It's going to sit there and do a log reduce on them over the last 60 minutes. Then it's going to go back 24 hours ago, do another log reduce for the last 60 minutes of 24 hours ago, and then it's going to compare them. So when I run this, and this will take a moment to run, what I'm doing here is I'm doing a log reduce now and a log reduce from 24 hours ago, both back to 60 minutes, and I'm going to compare them. So here I can see if things are getting better, things getting worse, things getting significantly concernable, right? So if I've got 1 or 2% of change, that's not a big deal, right? If I got 30, 40, 100% change, then maybe that's a big deal. So I can, you can, we can go up here and see the percentage of change and to see if we should be worried or not. Now, this new, you'll see the word either new or the word gone. The word new means it wasn't there 24 hours ago, but it is there now. So it's something that's new. If I see the word gone, it means it was there 24 hours ago, but it's not there anymore. So I can also see when I have new things or when things have resolved themselves. Now, you may think, for example, today is Wednesday, I'm going to compare it with my Tuesday logs. Your business may be such that comparing it day to day doesn't make sense, but maybe comparing it on weekdays makes more sense. I don't know about you, but my Mondays are never like my Tuesdays. My Tuesdays are never like my Wednesdays, but my Wednesday is typically like my previous Wednesday because I do a lot of teaching on Wednesdays. Okay. Tuesdays, I typically do a lot of teaching on Tuesdays, so I compare it against my Tuesday. So if I want to compare this against the previous week, I can do that as well by typing and making this time shift 7 days. And what I'm really looking for here is to see if I see, okay, I don't see any gones. I was just curious to see if I can get it to it gone, but you can change this time, compare it to 24 hours, 7 days, or you can go into this custom and change it to whatever the heck you want, right? So that's what log compare is. Now, so in the lab 4, we're showing you here about, again, using some various, creating some queries, using the log reduce operator, and here's that CloudTrail log if you want. And your log compare log, we talk about that as well. There's also a log explain operator. So here on page 34 and 35, and again, it makes a nice test question. So the log explain operator allows you to compare a set of structured logs, okay? And you're evaluating an event of interest, again, a known set, if you will, of interest against your data. So you're sending up a controlled data set, and then you're applying that to your event of interest data set to see if they are in fact, you do in fact have that condition. So that's basically what it's doing, and it's going to give you back here an exclamation, relevance, test coverage, and control coverage. So how much of this is in your control coverage? How problematic is it? So if you've got a condition, your logs are indicating certain conditions, you can use this log explain to look over a bigger population of data to see maybe this is something that's been going on for a while, okay? And so that basically is the lab 4. So again, a lot of cool things that you and I can do with logs, and I just want to mention that to you. Any questions so far? All right. One little thing I do want to mention to you, one of the slides I skipped, I did mention to you that it's going to be on the exam. but let me go ahead and take a moment here and show you this slide. Just bear with me a second. Here we go. Troubleshooting concepts. So when I talked about that root cause explorer, that root cause explorer and that link I gave you to the documentation on it talks about these troubleshooting concepts. You can use the root cause explorer to identify 6 troubleshooting concepts. The first one is abnormal spikes, right? Abnormal spikes indicate that there's potential problem and something you may want to investigate. Another troubleshooting concept that the root cause explorer makes available to you is context and correlation, right? I need to look at my spikes thinking in terms of context and correlation. If I have a spike in CPU utilization, that might be problematic and concerning. But if I think about it and say, what else is going on? Maybe I'm doing end of the month book closings and things like that, then maybe it makes sense for my CPU to go up, right? Again, there's correlation, things that you would need to consider with regards to why that spike may be occurring. Also, another troubleshooting concept is connection. What is the relationship between my resources and services, particularly my microservices? Those connections, just as I showed you earlier, we had the error message, and then we had the delay, and then we had the DynamoDB read throttling issue. Those are connected, those are related. And so with the root cause explorer, you can see that. Earlier spikes, right? Earlier spikes tend to show us are closer to the root cause issue. So again, what happened before might be related to what's going on now. Something to consider. And then also your exploration of logs, right? Looking at the logs will tell you what the root cause is and what happened. Now, whether you get there from metrics to root cause explorer to logs, or you get there from traces to logs, logs will ultimately show you what probably happened. And last is this concept of golden signals. I believe it was Google who came out with these golden signals that you use, your CPU, your hard drive space, and all that stuff. Those golden signals will help us understand what the root cause explorer issue is. And so if you did a search on Google golden signals, I think you would find out about those various golden signals. But the point is that these troubleshooting concepts that we use here in our root cause explorer, it does in fact examine that. Again, I remind you that this URL, this page that I showed you in our documentation, and I'll copy it again here in case you need the link, does answer a lot of test questions. So here I can see those are my 6 concepts here, right? There they are in this documentation. Also, if I need to know what seasonality is, I can go in here and I can find where seasonality is here, right? Seasonality is the metric 0, 1 to low, adds context, all that fun stuff, stability. So if you need to know questions in there. So this link will answer probably, I think, about 3 or 4 questions that are on the test. Now, are we ready to take the test, ladies and gentlemen? I think you are. In order to take the test, okay, that's fine. In order to take the test, what I need you to do is I need you to log out of our training environment. So again, you're logged in here as training analyst. So let's open up our navigation panel. Again, click on the hamburger menu if you need to do that. And down here at the bottom where it has your training analyst, I want you to click on it and I want you to log out. Okay, log out. Then I want you to go to your company's Sumo Logic environment. So go to your company's Sumo Logic environment, and I want you to log in with your credentials. So log in with your credentials. And if you got anything open, just close it up if you want, whatever. And to take the exam, again, you're logged into your company's environment with your name. If I go in and open up this panel, I see my first name, my last name here. Yay, okay. To get to the certification exam, as I mentioned before, you're going to click on the Home tab, click on the Certification sub tab, click on this Get Certified. Now, when you click on this Get Certified, earlier I saw 3 things. Now I'm seeing 5 things, okay? One of the things you didn't see before was learn a new skill. I'm sorry, these 2 things weren't there before, these 3 things. So become a Sumo Logic expert, excuse me. This is where you can see our self-paced classes, and you can sign up and take a self-paced class. So here under Observability, here is our Observability self-paced course. Excuse me, right here. Here is our Observability Administration self-paced course, Karthik, if you want to take that. One thing I will mention to you, whether you take the Observability self-paced course or the instructor-led course, you do need to have an AWS account so you can spin off an AWS environment, okay? Just want to make sure you're aware of that. Also, here's where our Kubernetes courses are. So these are self-paced courses that you and I can access. And of course, we can also see what the latest password is for the analyst account, okay? Now let me get back out of this for a second. Learn a new skill. Here's where our micro lessons are. So as I mentioned before, this is where Kevin and team basically create these lovely little videos that provide you some quick information to help you do the things you want. They're also on YouTube, but obviously they're easier to grab from here. Finally, over here is Get Certified. Here's where you and I can take the certification exam. So if you click on Get Certified, and what we want to find here is the Observability Fundamentals exam. Observability Fundamentals, please do not grab the Observability Admin exam. That's not the class we've had today. The Observability Fundamentals exam, if you click on that, there's a little button up here to register. You click on it and boom, you're registered. Pretty easy. And then I'm going to go ahead and go in here, and there's a reason why I'm showing you some stuff. Okay, so just bear with me a minute. Let me yak for about 3 minutes and then I'll be done. Up here in the upper right-hand corner, by the way, is your profile. Now, if you want to, you can add your image, your picture to your profile. You don't have to. Here's where we get all the information from. We get it from when you log into Sumo. That's why it's important you log in as you. Additionally, down here, I can see all the exams I passed, when I passed them, when they're going to expire. Additionally, I can take any of my active exams. I can view the certificate if I want to. I can click to add my credentials into my credentials area, my certifications area in my LinkedIn profile, okay? So we got that going for us. I scroll all the way down to the bottom and I click done. I'm back here and I'm ready to take my exam. Now, again, I don't want you to start and follow with me. I want you to pay attention for a second. Bear with me, give me 3 minutes and I will be done. So here, before you start, it says, oh, this exam is only 20 questions and you got 60 minutes to complete it. And the passing score is 70, not 75. Most of our exams have a passing score of 75 and they have 30 questions. This is a new course. We're going to sit there and check our questions carefully. So we're going to make it easier for you, hopefully, to pass. So here's the information. Again, it's open book, open notes, open slides. You can even ask the instructor here. I will be here while you take the exam if you take it now, and I'm here to answer any questions you get stuck on, and I will try to help you. Now, when I click next, it's going to sit there and take me to the exam. Hasn't started yet. Here's my 1 hour timer, my 60-minute timer. And I scroll down here, and when I'm ready to start, I'm going to go ahead and click on this. Now, I'm going to answer a couple of questions just to show you what this interface is like. So, what does the size of the shape mean in the service map? You may recall the size of the shape is how active they are, right? So I'm going to go ahead and answer that question. I'm going to click next. Okay. When are logs the best option for observability? Okay. Understanding the whole state, go beyond the metric, go beyond the metric deeper into the root cause of the problem, perhaps. Monitoring and investigating spikes metric, no. Profile and monitor a network, no. So I like this answer the best. So I'm going to answer that question. Now, over here on the left, it's going to keep track of what questions I've answered, what questions I have not answered, okay? And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to say I'm done. And obviously I'm going to fail because I've only answered 2 questions, right? So I'm going to say submit all answers. It says, are you sure you didn't answer all the questions? I said, yeah, I'm submitted. When I submit the questions, it will proceed to tell me what questions I got right and what questions I got wrong. But most importantly, the reason I'm showing you this is that you want to click, if you pass this and get above a 70 and you pass it, please make sure you click the submit results. Because when you click to submit results, it writes it to your profile. It adds it to your profile. If you don't click submit results, it doesn't add it to your profile. The exam did not happen, which means that you won't see the certificate. You won't see any of that stuff. So please, if you pass it, make sure you click to submit results. If for some reason you do not pass it, you can take it again immediately. You can take it again a couple of days. You can take it again anytime you want to. But hopefully you will pass it the first time and life will be good. Are there any questions about the exam, ladies and gentlemen? Let me turn on my camera for a second so I can say goodbye properly. So again, I want to thank you all for spending your day with us so far, and appreciate it. And again, feel free to take the exam. If you have any questions, I will be here. Otherwise, please be safe, and we look forward to seeing the class again real soon. Okay? Thank you very much. I'm going to stop the recording.